You know when life gets adult level hard? Like all of a sudden you have to deal with the fact that your forever relationship might not be so forever after all. Or when you start realizing that chronic sicknesses and diseases do exist and that they can in fact affect even you as well, not just your neighbor's sister or your best friend's grandma. Or, by far the worst one, the very sad realization after that very last semester of college when you realize that summer vacation isn't actually a thing and that you're going to have to work every single workday of every single week for the rest of your life, with some exceptions, Yani, of course. But adult level hard is a whole other level of hard, you guys. And now all of a sudden you start needing pep talks that you can take with you wherever you go. Pep talks that might have felt cliche or redundant before, all of a sudden now start bearing different and deeper meaning to you. It's just that I believe some of these pep talks were either really overused before we actually grew up and started needing them, or they have been abused as a way by which to sweep actual struggle and pain under the rug simply because people just aren't comfortable with sitting with morbid realities of actual pain. Kind of like fake band-aids that hurt like hell when we finally realize that we have to actually strip them off in order to air our actual wounds. You're familiar with said pep talks, such as, everything happens for a reason. And it is used to distract you from the gnawing pain that you're feeling right now and to get you to imagine an imagined future where this degree of excruciation is actually somehow worth it. Ha ha ha, hilarious. Or another good one, I just absolutely love this one, is God saves his toughest battles for his strongest warriors. And seriously, this one gets me beyond, like it gets me, because someone please show me the sign-up sheet where I put my name down as one of God's strongest warriors. Like, just show me, because I'm weak and I like it, and yet I'm getting God's toughest battles for some reason. But today we are going to try to talk about one particular cliche and redundant pep talk that is actually getting me through, currently, a very difficult season of my life. So get yourself nice and cozy and let's begin today's conversation. Hello and welcome back, or welcome here to a brand new episode of the Being Aloud podcast, where we talk about everything that is real and that is human and that is sticky, and yeah, it's just real talk over here. My name is Bibishay, as always, and I'm very happy to talk to you about the reality of the stickiness of being human, because someone has to, you know what I mean? This week, I figured we'd have a conversation about something that I don't even know how to approach, because I'm usually the type of person who makes fun of things like this. I make fun of sentences such as everything happens for a reason, or, whatever, all the things that we discussed in the introduction, because I, first of all, never really believed that they had any actual positive impact on anyone. Like, what good does it do for someone who's currently going through something extremely difficult to now all of a sudden hear that everything happens for a reason? Like, at a certain level and at a certain point, we stop caring about what the reason could potentially be, because the amount of pain that we are currently facing and feeling is just way too much. And so when someone tells you everything happens for a reason, you really couldn't care less. You just want this pain to end. You want this experience to have never happened. You want to move on with your life and, return to this level of innocence from a very deep degree of pain that you never thought you would experience, right? But then the older we get, the more that real life happens and the more that real pain happens. And so the more that we start needing coping mechanisms, like, we have to cope. There comes a certain point where if we're not told something that actually has the power to ring true in our lives, we will collapse because everything is just too hard, too much to bear. And I feel like I'm kind of in a season like that right now, which I thought I was finally going to be given a break. I thought I was finally going to have a season at least of where life is just smiling at me a little bit, so that I could also like peek through and smile back at it and everything. But then, ha ha ha, like the break lasted for one whole month. January was a good month of this year where I was able to celebrate and enjoy and kind of really enjoy things without the feeling of guilt and stuff before a hurricane happened again. And now we're back. We're back to just feeling terrible all the time. And when you reach this level of despair, it's not just despair, it's difficulty. We were just going to say difficulty. Whenever you reach such a bad level, like a deep level of where I can't handle this anymore, like I can't do this anymore, this is too much, you start hanging on scraps of words that people say. Whenever you find like, oh, this could potentially be something hope-giving or strength-giving that this person said. Even if that person doesn't mean it that way, you're going to hold on to that part because you can't anymore because you're dying, you're desperate. And so if you're in that season right now, and even if you're not in that season right now, chances are you know someone who is in that season right now. And also, unfortunately, chances are eventually you will be in that season. And I hope you remember this in the future, way in the future, and I hope you never have to, but I mean, it is life, And the one pep talk I'm going to give you today is the one that says that this too shall pass. And the thing about these sentences that I don't like, and that's the reason why I make fun of such sentences all the time, is that they're very impersonal. Like the fact that we can say the exact same thing to people who are going through extremely difficult and different circumstances makes these sentences sometimes sound like they're not genuine, or like, yeah, sure, this is something, ha ha ha, like we said in the introduction, like it's a band-aid that we can put over a wound, but not my wound. Because when we're going through difficulty, it seems and it feels very, very unique to us. And our situation feels very particular because the kind of pain is now being experienced by us. So for example, like hearing that someone broke up, okay? Sounds like, oh, and we tilt our heads kind of like in Friends, if you know, you like tilt your head, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through that. But then when you go through a breakup, it's a whole other story. Like the pain is completely different, right? And so these statements, they feel like they're blanket statements of like, sure, great, doesn't really apply to me, moving on. But because I'm in this season right now, I actually had this as one of the things that affected me the most last year, is that I remember I either read this somewhere or I heard it somewhere or whatever, this too shall pass. And it rung for me. And then my season of like extreme difficulty I thought was over. But I had this title for this podcast written. And then, because I keep like a list of potential ideas or whatever. And then last week I was at a children's birthday party actually. And one of the people there, the kid's father actually, told me, like he was asking how is the situation that I'm going through, like how is it going he was asking me and my sister, and we were just like, it's still happening, it's still happening and it sucks, and it is what it is. And he was like, okay, but I know it sucks, please just try to remember that it's not forever. Please just try to remember that there will come a day when this is over, and hopefully it will be over soon. And I remembered, like, so he didn't say that this too shall pass with those words. But when he said that, I remembered that this too shall pass. And I went back to my notes and I remembered that this is something that actually did pick me up a lot when I was going through the thick of something super blech. Um, and so, yeah, I'm here to tell you today that this too shall pass. And it's hard. I just think that as we say these things, like we could believe that everything does happen for a reason, but we have to be extremely wise about when we use such sentences. And I have spoken about this before on this podcast, and I refer to Kate Bowler all the time. If you don't know her, definitely check her out. Her name is Kate Bowler, and she has a podcast called the Everything Happens podcast because she struck out the for a reason part of that sentence. And basically on that podcast, she talks about things that are quite similar to this podcast, where she talks about real life and she brings guests and they talk about super sticky things. And it's not that we want to believe that everything doesn't happen for a reason, or it's not that like we are rejecting the idea that there could potentially be a good reason why I'm having to endure this difficulty. No, this isn't that, because deep down in our hearts, I think we all secretly hope that there is a reason, that our suffering isn't for nothing, but that it is for something. And so it's not like we're saying no, but when it is that we use this sentence or such sentences is everything. Because you can't go to someone who just lost a parent or just lost a loved one, or is in the thick of the stickiness of divorce, which if you've been there, you know how ugly it gets, and then tell them like everything happens for a reason. Because in that moment, they don't care. And also with this too shall pass, sure, it's amazing. And I believe it is something we need to hold on to. It shouldn't be said when you just don't know what else to say. It should be said in a very heartfelt way, kind of like the way that my friend told me and my sister that a couple of days ago, in a way that shows that, logically speaking, I'm coming at you. I'm not trying to like stick a band-aid on your wound just because I'm super uncomfortable to have this conversation with you. No, it's like we're having this conversation, but I'm here with perspective. And essentially that's what I'm trying to do with this episode specifically today, is give you perspective and remind myself of this perspective as well. Because as I said, I'm walking through this with you. I'm walking through this right now. It's so easy to get caught up in how difficult life is. And the thing about life is that really it's like waves. And the cliche thing that says that, like, I don't know what it's called medically, but you know how when they take your pulse or whatever, it goes like it's like a zigzag up and down, and that's how you know you're alive. And if the line is flat, they call it flatlined, aka you're dead. And so the same way with life, it's all about the ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. And so there will be ups. And when we're in the ups, sometimes we take them for granted and we forget to pause and be grateful and actually, thank God for what we have, and thank God for another good day or another normal day. But it's when we hit those dips, and sometimes those dips happen all of a freaking sudden, like you're given zero warning, and then we dip, and now we're like, we're going to be here forever, aren't we? And if you've been listening to this podcast or watching it for any amount of time, you know that I talk a lot about how prolonged this season of struggle and difficulty has been for me personally. Me, Booba, where technically my life started falling apart in 2020 and has been falling apart ever since. There has not been a season of consistency, like of consistent joy or consistent happiness. Sure, joy and happiness exist all the time. Like every single day I'm able to pause, and I'm so grateful for my gratitude practice because I have trained my brain to think this way. Like, thank God I'm able to realize and notice the good things even on a bad day. And so I'm not saying that it's just been crap all around, but the big events of my life or the overarching themes of my life have just been one difficulty after the other. And sometimes I wonder, like, when is it going to end? When is this dip going to finally end? And it's sentences such as "this too shall pass" that really truly give me hope, that give me perspective. Because you know what is the easiest slippery slope towards chronic depression It's believing that your circumstances are forever. And then I've been thinking, and I had a conversation with a friend about this as well this morning, actually, right before I recorded, is when life is so hard, right? We start feeling like the world is out to get us and not a good thing wants to happen for us. Like somehow we are special in our pain. Like somehow we are special in our experience of life, as though we are the center of the universe and the universe is out to get us. And when you pause for a moment, isn't that quite like narcissistic in and of itself? Like we like to think of narcissism as people who think about themselves all the time and then, think that they're amazing, or will say like, oh no, I'm so bad, because they want you to say like, you're so good. You know what I mean? But how often do we think of narcissism or egocentricism? You know what I'm trying to say? As the opposite of like, my life sucks. Everything in my life is super difficult. Blah, 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 blah. As though the difficulty of life is unique just to me. And that can be a very slippery slope, because you don't mean to be narcissistic or egocentric, but that's what you're doing and that's what you're being, instead of being like, okay, it is what it is, which we've had a podcast episode about, and I will link it below. Before, this concept of it is what it is. Now, what are you going to do about it? This is the circumstance. Whatever you're in pain over right now has happened. Just make sure that it's actually happened and not that you are wallowing in anxiety about something that could potentially happen. But we're going to say that you are now super sad and super anxious, and not anxious. Hopefully you're not anxious, but hey, we all face anxiety, but like, you are in this place right now because something has indeed happened. Matter of fact, c'est la vie. Now what are you going to do? And it has happened, and the pain you're feeling hurts so badly, but this too shall pass gives you perspective and gives you a way of seeing that as one day passes and then another day passes and another day passes, eventually the pain improves. Eventually it stops throbbing as badly. Eventually you start discovering how to cope with it, how to cope with this uniqueness of your unique situation, in a way that is proactive, in a way that builds you up, right? And I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're all going to face ups and downs. And sometimes our seasons of downs are going to be short, and there's going to be a quick fix and something easy that we can do. And other times our seasons of downs are going to be super long. For me, it's been almost 4 years. And we will collapse if we don't remind ourselves of truths such as, this too shall pass. There will eventually come a day when everything will be okay again, and you'll be able to go outside and you'll be able to enjoy the sunset and maybe even the sunrise if you're crazy, and you'll be able to go to bed at night with nothing on your mind except for planning for a future summer vacation, which you are going to make time for even though you're no longer in high school or college or whatever, It will happen. There is something on the other side. You just need to keep the hope and stay strong and maintain a positive, proactive outlook and take it one day at a time. So difficult. That's what we talked about last week, I think. But it's so hard to take it one day at a time. But when we realize that this too shall pass, taking it one day at a time becomes just that much more easy. Just that much easier. I forget my English sometimes. But yeah, life is so hard. And I know, like, if you are feeling it right now with me, then I feel you. It's like, it's so hard to be a person sometimes. And it's so hard to be an adult person sometimes. But this too shall pass. Just remember that. This too shall pass. take 3 deep breaths. Imagine a future where you're not feeling this way anymore, even if you don't remember what that was like. And pick yourself back up. This too shall pass. It shall pass. Everything's going to be okay. My friend, if today's episode resonated with you on a personal level, then I'm so sorry. But know that you're not alone. I feel it too. I am speaking to myself, to my own heart. This too shall pass. It's not forever. There will come a day, like after, it's so cliche. All these things are so cliche, but after every hurricane, the sun does shine. Again, there's a new morning every morning, and every morning brings new blessings. And if we just live in the hope of a new morning with new blessings, we'll be able to make it through one more day. And every day that passes will be one day closer towards peace and calm. And then the more of life's difficulties that we do face, the bigger the muscle that we grow. So that when another dip happens, whether that's a small dip, a big dip, big valley, whatever it is, we're better equipped. And every time we are more equipped. And every time we are wiser, we are stronger. And as we become wiser and stronger, we also become better members of society and better for our communities, where we're able to sit with people who are in pain and tell them we've been there. And remind them that this too shall pass. Life is hard, but we're not in it alone. I promise you that much. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to another episode of the Being Aloud podcast. As always, if you are in support of the podcast, if you like today's episode, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Please be sure to subscribe, especially if you are on YouTube, because big things are happening on YouTube and we're only growing this channel. Please also leave your comments below so we can have a conversation, exchange thoughts and ideas about like what we thought of this. Maybe you hate sentences like this too shall pass, or maybe you're going through a season where you just don't feel like it was practical information or practical advice for you today. Like, let's open the floor for discussion and conversation. I would love to sit in the living room with you guys, aka the comment section, and just have conversations. So don't forget to subscribe and like and share with your friends, and let me know if there's anything specific you'd like us to cover. And I will see you again here next time.